Chapter 10. Inside the Puzzle. Calder felt restless as he stood in front of the living room window on Wednesday afternoon. It had been 2 days since their trip to the library. Not knowing what to investigate, neither Calder nor Petra had done any further research. Outside it was pouring rain. The water was running and puddling. As Calder absent-mindedly watched the droplets forming and reforming in shape after shape, an idea came to mind. Of course! It was obvious the next step. He bounced up the stairs, away from his parents talking in the kitchen, and picked up the phone. When Petra answered, he said, "Listen, I think we should call the National Gallery and ask if a lady in writing is there. To find out if the painting is still safe and all that." "Why wouldn't it be there?" "Well, I just want to be sure. Maybe Charles Ford's warping my brain, but stories about teleportation and people vanishing into thin air? We should check." "I'll be right over." Neither Petra nor Calder had ever called a museum before. They flipped a penny about who was going to speak, and Petra dialed. There was a recording with the museum hours and information about shows and tours, and then finally a chance to talk to an operator. Petra held the phone at an angle so Calder could hear too. "National Gallery of Art," the voice was silky, not young, and very official. We're calling to find out if a certain Vermeer painting is on the wall right now." "Oh, what painting are you looking for?" Petra made a face at Calder. The voice now had a half-fake cheeriness that some adults use when talking to kids. Petra continued, trying to sound as businesslike as possible. A lady writing. "Let me check my computer. If the painting is on loan, I can tell you." Petra and Calder waited silent for her to come on again. "Well, yes, the painting is traveling just now. It's in Chicago. There's going to be a show called Writers in Art at the Art Institute." Petra and Calder's eyes widened. Calder grabbed the phone, pulling Petra's hair in the process. There was a fierce whispered "Ow!" followed by a muffled "Sorry." "Excuse me?" The woman's voice came on again. "Do you know whether the painting is in Chicago now?" Calder was squeezing the phone receiver so hard that his knuckles stood out. The woman on the other end hesitated. "Well, that's what the computer said. I assume so. It left Washington several days ago, and the show opens next week." Sensing that the woman was going to ask them what they were doing or whom she was speaking with, Calder said quickly, "Thank you, goodbye," and hung up. "Holy smokes, Petra." Petra nodded silently. "Are you thinking what I'm thinking?" She nodded again. "I'm calling the Art Institute. At this time, Calder Philly, you're not grabbing the phone and ripping out my hair." After a great deal of waiting and transferring to other lines, the second call told them only that the new show was going up in the following week. "Well, it could just be that we're thinking about this stuff because the painting is part of a show here, and we're just picking it up, that's all." Petra's voice trailed off. "Yeah, but I still feel funny knowing she's traveling, don't you? Paintings travel all the time, and now we'll actually be able to see her. Just like for this Picasso show that you either have seen or are going to see at MoMA, those are all pieces that traveled to get to that show." Is it time for a blue one?" They sat cross-legged on the floor with the geographer between them, arguing about whether the M&Ms they picked were the same size. They played a half-hearted game of Monopoly. Calder's mom brought them cookies and dark blue napkins covered with green frogs. "Hey, where did these napkins come from, Mom?" "I don't remember, but they're fun, aren't they?" After she left the room, Calder and Petra looked at each other. "Maybe the rain gave the frogs an excuse to drop in," Calder grinned. "Right. Speaking of frogs, any news from New York?" Calder had called Tommy the night before. He told Calder that he was beginning to wonder if there was a reason that everyone in his neighborhood was so unfriendly. Like there was a huge secret he couldn't figure out. Frog was definitely not around, and no one wanted to tell Tommy why. He admitted to Calder that he might have been a bit dramatic with the whole kidnapping stuff, but facts were facts. Frog was there one day and gone the next, and no one was talking. Sorry, I lost my place. I feel bad, but not being able to help. I feel bad about not being able to help, Calder said to Petra. Must be so creepy, wondering if you'll be the next kid to go. Maybe your Pemtominos will say something, she suggested. Calder stirred them around. He pulled out an N. He frowned. N for what? Calder thought about it out loud. New York? No. National Gallery? Forget it. A serious case of Vermeer on the brain. Yeah, it's hard to think about anything else. After school the next day, Petra raked leaves with her dad, who seemed to be in his own world lately. He never passed the food at meals. He had forgotten to turn off the bathtub a couple days ago. He tried to put on tiny socks from the sock basket and just looked puzzled when they didn't fit. Now he raked over and over the same spot on the lawn. The grass was pulling up. Why am I losing my place? Oh, the grass was pulling up leaves, leaving patches of bare dirt. Dad, Petra had stopped working. Yes? You okay? Petra's dad looked at her as if she were on the other side of a closed window. He lifted his hand with a stiff wave. Fine. But Petra didn't believe him. What had happened to him? He still went off to work, but he was always distracted. She wished with all her heart she had found the letter that had started all of this, the one her parents had been arguing about weeks ago. There might have been something she could have done. As her dad headed inside, she heard him mutter, "Alone. Insane." Petra's eyes opened wide. Alone? The first thing she thought of was a lady writing. What was her dad talking about? Had he meant money? Or had she heard wrong? Maybe he'd said, alone? Either way, it sounded bad. Calder made 2 pumpkin pies that afternoon with his mom and played 3 games of solitaire. He helped his dad fold the laundry. Calder, I need you for something else. Come outside. Calder's dad was already in his jacket. Calder followed him into the front walk, noticing with interest all the papers that had collected under the dead plants in the yard. He was remembering that letter about crime and art that Petra had found there and then was lost. His dad was squinting at the outside of the house. It's time we repainted. Think we should keep the same color? Yep, Calder said. That's Grandma Regina's color, isn't it? Too bad she can't know we're keeping her choice. Why did she like red so much anyway? Calder's dad laughed. It's a long story. Something about an artist, Vermeer. She wished she used more red because she thought he was the best, but red would have made him perfect. Weird, Calder said quietly. He glanced down the block and saw Petra in her yard. She had a red hat, a smudge of bright color against that November gray sky. Sometimes he wished he had never heard of Fort or Vermeer. Events that were purely accidental were beginning to feel like they were fitting together, but not in a way he understood or even a way he knew how to think about. It was one thing if you were using a handful of plastic pieces to find a solution to a puzzle, but it was another if you felt like you'd fallen inside of a puzzle and you couldn't get out. It's the end of chapter 10.